Hello and welcome to the Health Odyssey podcast, episode 278. And we are recording the second of our Christmas specials. And this one, if you're listening on the day of release or near to, is going out on Boxing Day if you're in England. So Boxing Day, obviously over here, or England, Scotland, the UK is the day after Christmas Day. I know in America they don't have Boxing Day, but if you're listening in America or Canada, it's the day after Christmas Day. So thank you very, very much for joining us. Hopefully you're all nice and full and proteined up and ready for a good session after Christmas Day. You've all eaten a good amount of food, I hope. And I'm going to touch base with Peter Lant first of all, because he's still got his. I think he's left it on. He's had it on all week. It's his Die Hard Christmas jumper, and he's got a fresh backdrop.
Have,
So,
yeah.
Okay.
So all the Christmas films, I had them last year as well. So we've got Die Hard, Lethal Weapon, because that starts with Jingle Bell Rock.
Yeah.
There's a Christmas tree in the backdrop of First Blood.
Rambo First Blood.
Right there. And he's wearing a hat. But I think that might be that might be after the fact. And then It's a Wonderful Life, which is one of the most depressing films you'll ever watch until the last 30 seconds.
Excellent. Well, I've got a different
Happy Christmas.
I've got a different Christmas jumper on. Oh, he's just
You've disappeared, mate.
there I am. I've got a different Christmas jumper on, but the same backdrop. And we are joined all the way from Scotland by Mr. Chris Beetham, aka The Beef. And he's got a Christmas jumper on. Can you tilt your camera down, Chris? And we can see instead of beast mode, feast mode, and he's got a Christmas mug. And so feast mode, and instead of the night, I like that. Instead of the Nike tick, it's a turkey leg. Let's add a few big bites out of it.
We'll do that. Happy Christmas, everyone.
Happy Christmas. Brilliant. So, so Chris is joining us from Scotland. Now, we've been teasing the fact that Chris is going to come on for what feels like months, and we finally got him on, which is great.
I think that's mostly my fault because I kept delaying it. So sorry about that, guys.
No, it's great that we've actually got you on Boxing Day anyway. So we got you on as a Christmas guest. And you were the first.
It's a bona fide Christmas miracle.
It is a Christmas miracle. Okay.
Fair play.
Excellent. So we got Chris on. Now, Chris is a 2024 Scotland's strongest man. He came second this year by like a point and a half to Andrew Flynn, which I was watching live in Nottingham. It was on the very final event on the keg loading run. Second in UK strongest man this year, and second in the Iceland's strongest Viking out in Iceland, obviously. And recently, I've spent some time with Chris out in Iceland, where he was competing as part of the Magnus Classic. So. But I mean, Chris, we're going to talk about lots of stuff with Chris. He's a father of two. He coaches kids rugby. He runs a gym. He looks after like about 35 clients and athletes. He also is obviously a high level competitive, pro strongman. And is also a full-time structural engineer as well. So he's spinning a lot of plates. So we're going to find out all about kind of Chris and his background and how he goes about managing all of that stuff. And very luckily, like I say, we've got and he's fitted us in before he does the school run today. So he's very, very busy. So Chris, thank you so much for joining us.
Good to be here. Thanks so much. It feels like, as you said, this has been going for in the books for a long, long time. But we got to know each other a bit in Iceland, as you said, and it's great to actually finally be able to have a chat.
Excellent, brilliant. Now, I suppose for people listening and for us, what would be really good is to understand, because obviously you're the first of a trilogy of strongman guests. It's just the way that it's kind of lined up. At the moment, where you kind of get people booked in. So we're speaking to yourself today. We're speaking to Levi Strong next week. And I'm going to find out if Levi Strong is actually his real name. Do you know if that is his real name? I'm not sure.
I think it is, but it sounds like a wrestler's name, like WWE or something like that.
Yeah. Levi Strong, because Colin Bryce kept saying that can't be his real name. That's got to be a made-up name. And then we've got Paddy Haynes on the week after. So we've got three weeks of strongman guests, just the way it's kind of come around. But it'd be great to find out a bit about your background in sort of training, sport, how you came to strength training and then how you came to strongman and how obviously getting to the level that you're currently at in strongman. I know you've been at Giants live events as well and things, and just kind of, yeah, and also, like we say, as we go through the conversation, how you manage being so busy and how you must have to be extremely organized with everything, all the plates that you're spinning. So I suppose to begin with, Chris, it'd be great to know a bit about your background in sport and training, and how you got to where you are today.
I'll try and remember as best I can. But from a young age, I remember my mum was a runner. She used to compete in athletics up until she pretty much had me, and then it kind of stopped. But we always spoke about it. She had like trophies in the house, and my dad done a bit of long distance running as well. But I always remember my dad. He never went to the gym, he never played sports, but he was always really handy and he was laying slabs and building garages. And I was always sort of wandering about behind him and thinking, I wonder if I could lift that, and because my dad was so strong, in terms like my strength now, obviously he wasn't, but to a little kid, he was super strong. Um, and I remember always trying to show off by carrying a bag of sand or carrying some slabs around. And he was always like, oh, watch, don't hurt yourself. And I'm like, I'll show you, I'll carry this to the end of the driveway sort of thing. Even from a young age, that was always my mindset, like, I'll show you. And from that, I raced motorbikes when I was young for about 9 years. And it was when I started to sort of realise the cost implications that was having on the family. I was like, wow, I can't actually keep doing this. This is horrendous, what's doing to my family. So um, I was playing a bit of sport in school, but I wasn't very good at anything, to be honest. And then went through the usual, like a little bit of bullying. And the guys that I always remembered never got bullied was the rugby players. And I'm thinking, I'm going to start playing rugby. um, and and that kind of for a few years I was on and off with the rugby. I started when I was about 13, I think, but the local team only had like under 18s. So again, I was in at the sort of deep end and just had to get on with it. And back then there was no real rules like saying, oh, you can't play like if you're big enough, you're old enough, and that was the case. So it was a steep learning curve for me. But a couple of years into that, 15, they introduced weight training to us, and again, I was like the weakest. I was the smallest. I hated it, but my dad just used to keep taking me along. I'd chip in, and I can remember like struggling to bench the empty bar, and squatting with 2.5 kilo. They had like the huge training plates, the Olympic size two and a
Yeah,
half
I've
kilo
got some of
plates.
them at the gym. We call them the Instagram plates because they look
Yeah,
like 25s, don't they? They're huge, but they're 2.5 kilos. Yeah.
yeah. So they made me feel quite strong. So I was squatting those, and then we would do sprints and stuff. And I hated it, but I just kept going. And then I realised that some of the older boys were developing a lot more quickly just with their age. And I'm thinking, right, I need to keep doing this because that's what I'm going to end up like. Um, and that was the case. I was never the most skillful rugby player, very much a kind of route one type player as I got older. But I realised how much that strength training was helping me. And I just kept going all the way through, right until I stopped playing rugby when I was 27. But by that point, I'd sort of trained with quite a lot of people out with of rugby, and a lot in my local area. There was a really good bodybuilding gym which I found myself in. Really kind of spitting sawdust type of place. And I just used to watch other guys and try and learn off those guys. Nobody really spoke to me. I was just the wee guy that squatted all the time, and that was it.
So
Um,
when you say you've said it a couple of times, you're a wee guy, you were a small guy, you were the smallest one, and all the rest of it. So were you not? Because obviously now you're 6 foot, what, three-ish, something like that, maybe
Yeah,
more.
6'2", yeah,
Yeah.
145 kilos, 150 kilos when I'm competing.
Yes, you're
But
a
back
big guy
then,
now, but were you kind of, did it take you developed sort of like you got big sort of a bit later on in your teens or
yeah,
something, or
yeah, when I played rugby, I was a winger to start
yeah.
off with. I was really skinny, had quite big legs because that's all I'd done. I trained squats all the time. My upper body was really weak, but I just kept training. I kept trying to put on weight, and I used to look at the international players and see. I moved into centre and I'd be like, oh, what weight is international players? They were like 17 stone, 17 and a half stone. I'm like, right, that's the weight I need to get to. And I sort of I just used to push myself to try and gain weight. But I was really skinny. My whole family's quite skinny as well and lean. but I've sort of forced myself to be this size.
Okay.
Yeah, so towards the end of my sort of rugby, I would say career. It wasn't really a career, but I ended up playing sort of semi-pro level. Um, and we used to do strength tests, and I was like the strongest player on the team. So as a number 8 by that point, which was quite cool because it was always, the prop should be the strongest. So it was always quite nice to beat those guys. But by that point, I sort of had one eye on doing something in strength sports. I don't know if you guys know of or were a part of Sugden Barbell or have heard of it. No, it was like an online. I just sort of stumbled across it, but it was like an online area for strongmen to post their training before Instagram and Facebook. You can still get on it now. And guys like Bish was on it, Eddie Hall in the early stages was on it. All these top guys and all the guys that some of them are still in the sport now were on it. I used to go through and read stuff, and then there would be competitions on there and everybody's training logs. I could sort of try and decipher what people were doing. And that really I had one eye on strongman kind of my last season of rugby. At that point, I never thought I was anywhere near strong enough, although I probably was strong enough to do a novice level comp. Um, but during my last season, which was never meant to be my last season, but I fractured my back. And that was basically the kind of the stop for me. I had a year of physio and speaking to consultants. I actually walked into the hospital with my letter for an X-ray, and they're like, "Well, it's clearly not broken because you're walking in." I always remembered that, and then eventually got a letter back saying it was fractured, had a bilateral pars fracture, which we rehabbed, and the physio I was seeing was private, and he was a strongman, and he competed in Scotland's Strongest Man and UK Strongest Man, um, and we kind of became friends. And he was rehabbing a hip labrum tear, and I sort of said, well, maybe we could train together for a wee bit. And one thing led to another, and we became sort of best mates, and decided to do a competition in powerlifting together, and that's really what kicked it off.
Wow. Okay. So this is interesting because we've spoke to a few people, I think, who took up strength training to complement another sport, and then basically fell in love with strength training as an entity of its own, and kind of went into that because yeah, and rugby, obviously, like you say, is synonymous with strength and training and being very physical and all the rest of it. So you were probably, when you were doing rugby, you were doing things like deadlifts and bench pressing and overhead pressing. And I don't know if you were doing things like power cleans and stuff like that back then. Yeah, so that's interesting.
Exactly
So,
that.
yeah,
So
so
I
I
used to
mean,
follow. I started to kind of follow the. I suppose it was like standard strength training program. So it was like 5x5 and all the sort of stuff that gets you going. And I still use now actually.
hmm.
But a few of my mates were in the Scotland setup, and I used to steal their like under 20 Scotland training programs, and it would have like hand cleans in it and deadlifts. And so I jumped about a lot, but yeah, I had the basis there of some good training phases, which really stood me in good stand.
And when you said like you just kept wanting to put on weight and getting bigger, and when you were playing rugby, were you just eating like as much as you could to put some size on while you were strength training and while you were playing rugby, or were you doing it quite a bit more scientifically? I mean, how were you at that stage? Were you just getting loads and loads of calories in, or were you quite careful with the type of calories, or was it just getting food in?
One thing I would say my whole life, a downfall for me has probably been my nutrition. I actually know now what I should be eating, and I'm a lot better now. Back then, I had no real idea. I was reading bodybuilding magazines, and I'll try and go through a phase of eating clean, but I didn't understand calories back then, and everybody was, protein shakes and supplement shops were becoming, they were quite a big thing back then. As they started to get introduced. And even when I was like 18, I remember the gym had protein shakes that you could buy that were ready made, and I used to get one after training when I could afford it. But I was living at home, my mum and dad. I basically ate what my mum was giving me, and then you would sort of ruin it the weekends with it. When we were playing rugby when we were away. You would generally just eat what everybody else is eating. So after the game, if it was a pie and beans or something like that and a chocolate bar, that's what you had. and then you'd have beers after the game and a chippy or something like that. So it's like, it was terrible. And I was still sort of had my eyes on other wee sports as well. Like I played football on a Sunday with my mates and fitting and training. But I was training the night before a game. I was doing bench press and shoulders, and it was just
Mm.
stupidity. But looking back, because I was never going to be fully recovered, and you know, looking back, I wish I could change things. And I suffered a few injuries before I had the big one as well, two shoulder dislocations that probably could have been avoided if I was a bit smarter with my training, a bit more switched on with nutrition, and hindsight's a wonderful thing.
Yeah, I remember when I was at uni, I went to university in Northampton and I played rugby for 3 years for the uni and that. And there was a guy there who was one of he played in the team, but he was older. He was a South African guy, rugby player who kind of helped with the coaching and stuff for the team. And back then I was like, I mean, I'm not big now compared to you. I'm about 90 kilos, but I think I was like really trying to get to like 80 kilos, and I was like 70 something. And he used to say, and he used to work in the gym when I trained there at uni. And he used to say, just before bed, he goes, what you want to do is do yourself a massive jacket potato, loads of beans, loads of cheese, and eat that in bed, and then just put the plate beside your bed and go to sleep. So you just eat all that food just before you go to bed. And then that'll keep you full overnight, and that'll all be. And it was just one of these things that, he was a big South African old
Just
school
take his word for
guy,
it.
but it was just, it's funny, isn't it? When you're that age, when you're young and you struggle to put weight on, you can just kind of eat anything really, can't you? Do you know what I mean? To
Yeah.
put size on,
That's exactly it. Just calories, get them in. And I was so active, I wasn't eating enough. And I remember there was one summer I really was making an effort to do it. And I basically just had two evening meals. I would
Mm.
have one at my house, then I would go through to Kirsty's house, who's my fiance now. But back then we were just, first year or two seeing each other. And then I'd have another meal at Kirsty's house. Our mum would make me dinner or Kirsty would make me dinner and I'd eat that as well. Then have supper. So, it seems a bit crazy, but it was just an extra 1,000 calories, and that's what I needed. So,
Yeah.
I
but
used to
yeah,
do that as a kid, but that wasn't because I was trying to bulk up or anything. You just be at your mate's house, and the parents would be like, "Do you want some dinner?" You'd be like, "Yeah, okay."
yeah, okay.
You'd have dinner, and then you go, "Right, I've got to go home now because it's dinner time." You used to do that all the time.
So,
Living the
so,
dream.
so what was your you said you were training with the guy who was the kind of the physiotherapist, I think, and then did you mention that you decided that you would do like a powerlifting competition together? Is that your
Yeah, so
first
that's
thing you
right.
did? Yeah.
Yeah, so that was 2015. I'd been, I think I fractured my back 2013.
Mm.
So I'd been training. It was basically trying to get strong but pain free again. I remember it when after the injury had healed and I was just starting to introduce strength training again. I went on reverse hyper and I couldn't even do it empty. That's how weak I was and how painful it was. Even just leaning over the reverse hyper and putting my spine in flexion, the pain was unbearable. So it took a lot to kind of get me going again. Squatting came back quite naturally. Bench was fine, obviously. Um, but the confidence with deadlifts was a real struggle. I ended up pulling sumo for a little while just to try and put me in a safer position. But I'm not really actually built to sumo properly. I've not got the flexibility in my adductors. But um, yeah, so 2015 we decided to do a powerlifting comp. By this point, I'd sort of had a lot of flare-ups from my back, but I was being able to sort of train consistently and build that strength up. So yeah, 2015 December, we both done the BDFPA Scottish. And I can't actually remember what I totaled, but it must have been about 625 across the
Mm.
three lifts, raw, bare knees. And I was tied first in my weight class, but I ended up losing to another one of our training partners who beat me on body weight. Which
Okay.
I think he'll never let that down. But it kind of set the fire. For me, it was my first experience of doing something competitive that wasn't a team sport.
Mm.
And, you know, start to realize that everything I put into this was for me. And it didn't, nobody else could affect my performance apart from me. So that was quite an important sort of tick in the box that made, I think it really fueled my fire to then progress and continue. So a couple of months after that, I done the British, and that was a real eye opener because there was some fantastic athletes in there. and I finished, I think, maybe seventh or out of 14 or so. Um, but interestingly, in that competition was a very young man. I think he was about 14, 15 years old, um, who just set the British log lift record, Jack. So Jack
Oh,
Osborne was in that
yeah.
competition at the same time, yeah. So he, yeah, it was interesting. Obviously, we didn't know each other, never spoke, but I just remember this very young guy with long hair breaking all sorts of world records. It's really interesting that we've both progressed to quite a good level in
Yeah.
strongman.
I was going to ask because most people, when I did when I was younger, when you go to the gym, it was all about kind of like bench press and bicep curls and just kind of training training to look better, really, right? So, but you said from a young age you just squatted, you did loads of squatting, and that was kind of important to you. But that's very, very rare, isn't it, for someone in their teens just to be squatting and want and in teens, early 20s, that kind of age. Um, why was it that you did that? Did you instinctively just know that? Because obviously, when you squat, you get this kind of hormonal cascade, whatever you want to call it, that does help put sort of size and strength on your whole body. But it's very unusual for a young man to be squatting all the time. So where did
Yeah.
that come from?
Yeah, well, our rugby coaches, both of them were bodybuilders. I don't think either of them ever went on stage, but they were very much in the kind of that 90s bodybuilding era, and the really hardcore gym in Alloa, where I'm from, or nearby where I'm from. And when they got us there, to be fair to them, all they had us doing was squatting, benching, deadlifting, overhead press, and sort of sprints with weighted bags. And when you think about it, they were on the ball. They were absolutely spot on, and I don't even think they knew they were right. They just thought this is what we'll make them do.
Mm.
Um, I still see some of the coaches now, and I still thank them for it every time I see them because that. Then when I went into a commercial gym, the first thing I know what to do that I'm comfortable doing when I'm a 16, 17, 18-year-old young boy and there's all these monster bodybuilders about is I kind of know how to squat. So we'll just go and do that. And that way I'm not going to embarrass myself. But it was also the way the gym was set up, there was like a kind of pit that was like a hardcore area where there was the free weights and the rest of the gym was a commercial gym. So in this sort of, you would take 3 steps down into it and there was a couple of mirrors, there was like loads of heavy dumbbells, few barbells, an incline bench, normal bench, a squat rack. And that was where the hardcore bodybuilders mostly spent their time. And I wanted to be in there. Like, so the only thing I could really do comfortably in there was squat and bench. So that's what I done. And yeah, I think when I was down there, I always wanted to show that I was strong enough to be there, even though really I probably, it doesn't matter how strong you are as long as you go in and train. But for me, it felt like I had to prove to them that I was strong enough to be in there. And so I would squat, and I was maybe only squatting, I don't know, 18, maybe up to a maximum of 140. Um, Usually in the sort of 80 to 100 kilo range for repetitions, and maybe benching 60 to 80 then. I think maybe 100 kilos like a one rep max, but that was the driver that it was something that I was comfortable doing, and I wanted to show them that I was strong enough. Whereas when you're on the machines, nobody pays that much attention. It's everybody's just getting a training stimulus. So I think that was the main driver.
It's great. I
Mm.
think we had Finbar Toulon on, he's a kettlebell lifter, pentathlon. He's just won the world championships again, actually, like last week or whenever it was, as we record, and got a world record. But he said when he was like 16, he was in Belfast. He said he was 16 or 14 or something, and for his birthday, his parents got him a couple of personal training sessions with this one of the main guys in Belfast, and he learned bench, deadlift, and squat. He taught him that, and I think there's a few people who we've spoken to who are like that. And it's like if every 16-year-old could just learn bench, deadlift, and squat, do that for a few years, and learn it well and get really good at it while doing other stuff, but and doing it safely and all that. It's like it basically sets you up for the rest of your life in anything, doesn't it? I suppose. It's amazing. So you've done the same thing, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
I remember one summer, I think I had really bad shin splints, and I'd sort of figured out that frequency helps or increased frequency helps, especially for like natural athletes. I was still quite young though, so I basically just squatted every time I was in the gym. So I was squatting 4 times a week. And I went back after summer and my legs, I think I was the perfect age as well. I was eating more and my legs just ballooned. And I remember going back to train, my rugby coach was like, "What the hell have you been up? Like, what's going on with your leg?" They were so much bigger than they'd been before. So that was, and I'd always remembered that. I was like, "Oh man, I love that." That's like getting that kind of people noticing that you were growing was a, it was a nice feeling.
Excellent. No, that's fantastic. And then so you did these few powerlifting meets. I don't know how many you did in total because still squattings. I remember at Nottingham this year at the UK's, they had that squat rig set up outside, didn't they? Where you were squatting the
Yeah, yeah,
car and it was like
it's
a
cool.
frame. And your squat is still. I mean, the thing is, in strongman now, they don't really have a lot of squat events, do they? They seem to have. They always have deadlift event, a deadlift kind of event, but the squat is not something that is kind of done a hell of a lot in strongman these days. But you're still really strong, obviously, on the squat, aren't you? Because I remember you did really well on that one, I think.
Yeah, that's right. I think I hit the 320 or 330 on the day. I think Paul just beat me by 10.
Hmm.
But yeah, I still love squatting. I think I've always had quite good mobility for it. So that's something that's helped that I've never really had to work on my mobility too much. And I've always squatted throughout all my strongman years, especially in off seasons. Don't tend to do as much of it during the seasons now. As I'm getting older as well, I find it a bit tougher on my knees, but I'll always do some form of squat, whether it's a front squat, a Hatfield squat, a box squat, something, just to keep that hip hinge in. But yeah, I think we done maybe three powerlifting comps. And then for the first maybe 4 years that I competed in strongman, I done both. So
Hmm.
the way the sort of season fell, I done strongman. Um, I would say, well, I done, what was it, like April to September, and then I done powerlifting all winter. And that kind of, again, it was what I had access to kit wise as well. So during the summer, we could train outside of the strongman kit, and in the winter, we just stayed in the gym and powerlifted basically. And that worked well for me because I was quite naturally quite good at strongman in terms of sandbags, stones, even yokes and farmers. I was all right, but the thing that let me down when I started was my static strength. It just wasn't good enough to be competing at the levels, at Scottish strongest man level when I started. So yeah, I thought powerlifting was going to help my static strength, deadlift, squat, bench is going to carry over to overhead, hopefully. So that's basically what I've done for about at least 3 or 4 years.
And I suppose coming from a rugby background, you had that kind of athleticism, agility, obviously used to sprinting, used to kind of, you know, getting in rucks and mauls and kind of, being very physical and that kind of stop start, that kind of endurance to play a game of rugby. So whereas some people maybe they're very strong statically, but they don't have that kind of agile, mobile strength. You kind of you had that kind of going for you from all those years of rugby as well.
Yeah, that's right. I suppose nothing's ever really came to me that easy. So right from a young age, I always sort of researched things as best I could. And I used to read autobiographies of rugby players. I used to try and find training plans that they'd done and watch DVDs. And I remember I got a Johnny Wilkinson DVD and he was doing plyometrics training. I was thinking, all right, I need to do that. And he was doing extra sprint training. He was a professional athlete, but I was there thinking, right, I need to do this is what I need to add in. So I was doing extra sprint sessions and basically anything that I could do away from my actual rugby training sessions, I was doing to try and be a better rugby player. Um, even if it was like trying to learn how to juggle and throwing balls off walls and I'd just go and kick had a bag of balls, I'd go and practice kicking and I wasn't a kicker, but I'd go and practice anyway and just do every sort of aspect of rugby training to try and make me a better player. And that's kind of carried over with me into strongman as well, like a lot of research into what other guys are doing and before kind of YouTube was sort of big and now it's so much easier. But I suppose in some ways, but there's a lot more kind of terrible advice out there as well. So it's a bit of minefield for young people now, I suppose, coming through.
I suppose, yeah, there's an abundance of information, but it's very inconsistent, isn't it? And you don't really know like what like back in the day it would have been we've spoke to people like Dan John on here who's been an athlete since the sort of the 70s. I think he's like nearly 70 years of age now, and he said
I've
you
actually got one of
use
his books.
oh, you got Dan John, yeah. So Dan's been on here about 12 times. I think it's 12
Yeah,
times.
yeah.
He's a good friend of ours. He's been on lots, so he's fantastic. But he used to say that you used to just get all your information from books or like a monthly magazine, you know. So you'd get the monthly magazine and you'd try and work out what was good from it. And then the next monthly magazine would come out and it would be totally contradicting the previous monthly magazine. You know, it's like one month it would say, high volume, lower load. The next month it would say, low volume, high load. Another month it would say, something different. So, but yeah, like you say, there's a lot more information, but I suppose it's knowing who to trust or where to get the information
Yeah.
from, and you only really get that, I suppose, from experience and from, I mean, now, so how long have you been now kind of consistently strongman is your focus, and that's kind of where you've been competing? How many years has that been now?
I suppose powerlifting was 2015, so 10 years, and then that very quickly went into strongman. So maybe 9 years for strongman,
Hmm. Yeah.
and non-stop. And not, even when I've been injured, I've found a way to train some way. So
Hmm.
I've even had, when I've had bicep and forearm injuries, I got like a metal frame. There is a name for it with a loading pin out the front, so I could do like loaded carries and things like that, and just find a way basically to train. So yeah, 10 years non-stop.
Yeah. Wow. And how long was it till you got to, when was your first kind of, I suppose, high level comp? Because I suppose initially you probably were
Yeah.
doing things like novice shows, intermediate shows, then moving into opens and stuff. But when did you first, what was the first big show? Would it have been like a Scotland's Strongest Man, or what would the first big one be?
Yeah, well, because my training partner then, Lewis Mitchell, he helped me massively. He was fifth in Scotland's one year. He'd been at UK Strongest Man, and his training partner Gary had also qualified for UK's before, but never actually went. So I had two real good mentors to start me off in strongman. And the first show, we went to watch Scotland's Strongest Man. I actually went to watch it when I was still playing rugby. I couldn't, nobody wanted to go with me. So me and my mum drove down to Dumfries and we went and sat and watched Scotland's Strongest Man. Um, I think it was the first year Luke Stoltman won his title. And I remember sat in the crowd that day. I said to my mum, I was like, I'm going to be in there one day. And she sort of looked at me as if saying, all right, aye, okay, cool. I don't know if she quite believed me. But I remember it well, and I went outside, had a yoke outside, and I picked up the empty yoke just to see what it felt like. And but I never actually done a novice or an inters. I did do inters comps actually, but I never. My first comp was actually in the Natural Federation, and it was Scottish Strongest Man in the Naturals, and Lewis and I done it, and there was only two of us in the Opens, but I came second and Lewis won. And it was sort of after that we done the British Naturals. That was my second comp, and that was a real eye opener because I don't know if you know the guys, but there was a guy called John Clark who owns it's from Worcester, but he owns a lot of gyms in that area, and he naturally he pulled 400 kilo. He was an absolute monster of a guy. He competed on the sort of Britain's Strongest Man level with Laws and Hicks and Bish and all those guys. Um, but he sort of showed me what could be achieved naturally, and that was a massive driver for me from the start. So eventually, I competed in. We made the decision to do Scotland's Strongest Man the next qualifier, and my goal was to qualify for Scotland's Strongest Man before I turned 30. So I think I was 28 then. Um, Luckily enough, the first one I done, I qualified. So, but I actually missed the final because I had re-injured my back training for it. So I had to wait another year. Again, the fire was just really burning for me then because I felt a wee bit jealous. I think I'd seen everybody doing the competition. I was like, I should have been there. It's been such a long, I felt like a long time at the time, like 3 years since I fractured my back to qualify for a Scotland's Strongest Man final, and then I didn't get to do it. I sat watching in the crowd again. So the next year I went again, qualified again, and actually made the final in 2017 or 2018, I think. And that was huge for me because not only was it Scotland's Strongest Man, but the way the competition was run that weekend, it was run as the European Log and Deadlift Championships. So when you walked in the arena, it was in the SEC Hall in Glasgow, but they had Zadrunas Savickas competing and Aaron Page. I think Luke Philbrook was there and a few other really, really good lifters. I remember thinking like, oh my God, what the hell have I got myself into here? But yeah, I think I was last or second last, but it was like from then, my sort of mindset was right, who am I going to beat next time? Like, and I just sort of looked at the leaderboard and I remember there was guys on there. I was thinking, right, I'm going to beat him this time. I'm going to beat him next time and keep working my way up. Um, and that's basically what I've done, and I've continued doing. So I've not missed a Scotland Strongest Man final since. I think
Yeah,
I've got the record now for the most appearances out of everyone.
yeah.
And I'm not planning on stopping anytime soon.
And the UK's strongest man, which you went, Pete, a couple of years ago, didn't you, in Nottingham?
I wanted to bring this up because I wanted to talk about Stones a little bit as well, but maybe it's in a bit or whatever. But there was that. It was Glenn Ross, wasn't it? And he was putting up that, was it the 200 kilo stone? There was a massive stone, but it was like an extra diameter or something. And I think you'd said to him, I'll lift that. If you put it on, I'll lift it. Was it you? It was you who said that. It was in Nottingham a few years ago. And you did it and went nuts because you were the only person who could do it. Everyone else missed it, that last stone.
I remember now.
And he said it's a bigger, it's obviously the same
Yeah,
weight, but it was a bigger
Glen's stones are a
diameter.
bigger diameter. Yeah,
Mm,
they're really
And you
hard.
could see everybody struggled with it, but you were like, you'd said, oh, if you put it on, I
I'll
will
do
put it up.
it.
And you did. And you went absolutely
Sounds,
mental, and it was brilliant.
yeah, it sounds like something I would say, to be honest. Can't always back it up what I say, but I'll try my best.
You managed to do that day, though. You put a bit of pressure on
Yeah,
yourself.
Because
good.
those Ultimate Strongman, those UK Strongest Mans are really good shows, aren't they? And they're like the last 2 or 3 years, I think, has been televised live on Channel 5 in the UK, and they put it on like on a Saturday and a Sunday, don't they? Live on the TV. And
Yeah,
I mean, you go to these events. So I've done, it was Nottingham, then Cardiff, then Nottingham, and like I say, this next year is Glasgow, which I think they said is the first time that they've hosted it in Scotland at the UK's Strongest Man.
yeah,
Um, which I'm going to be at again, which is fat. But those shows, they're big shows, they're arena shows. You've got big crowds, you've got live TV, you've got all the music, all the kind of pyro, and the huge posters outside, and your face is on
yeah.
most of the kind of the promotional stuff and the programs and all that. I mean, how does that feel now? I mean, being, I suppose you've moved now into more of the you're a celebrity within the strongman world, aren't you now? I mean, how does that sit with you? Does that feel quite natural, or does that feel a little bit strange?
Yes. I suppose it does feel a bit strange, but for me, with the UK Strongest Man, that was the kind of route that really made me realise I could actually maybe do something in the sport.
Hmm.
Um, I was pretty close to quitting strongman around 2019, 2020, I think, because I felt like I'd sort of reached my peak maybe, and I was going to just focus on powerlifting and the IPF route and how competitive that was. I wanted to really try and push to go to IPF Worlds. Um, but I got a phone call saying, well, basically from Glenn himself, saying, I see you as an up and coming star, and I would really love it if you done my qualifier. And I remember sort of saying to him, well, I'm not doing it because I've got Britain's strongest natural man that weekend. And he was just like, oh man, like, come on, you really need to do these shows, get into Ultimate Strongman. We can take you on a kind of a nice route to UK Strongest Man. I'm thinking, I'll never qualify for UK Strongest Man, like in the back of my head. Um, but the next year, I was like, right, okay. Oh no, sorry. The next year, yeah, I said, right, I'm going to do it, and the dates aligned, and I done Scottish Strongest Man Ultimates. I came fifth my first year. But what I done, Glenn changed things up the next year, and he basically put on a golden ticket as like a last chance qualifier for UK Strongest Man. So the fourth and fifth place from each nation was invited to Doncaster Dome, and that was my first real big comp outside of Scotland. And there was guys some legends of the sport and ultimate strongman, like Nicky Whelan was there, Andrew Flynn was there now, Des Gahan, who had competed at Giants Live. I'm going to forget so many guys, but lots of guys have been at UK Strongest Man. Scott Milne was there. And I remember, being in the athlete meeting thinking, again, what the hell am I doing here? And really felt out my depth and with a crowd that was huge, and I was quite nervous about it. But I had nothing to lose, and the events were okay for me. And I actually went into the eliminator against Scott Milne. You know, we were third and fourth in the top three, got an invite. So Andrew won it, Des Gahan second, and then I beat Scott Milne in the eliminator to go third, and sort of guaranteed my invite to UK Strongest Man. So, which was just unbelievable for me, but it really gave me the belief to push on. And I remember the first event at UK Strongest Man that year. It must have been, was it 2021? I was sat next to Gav Bilton in the change room, and I was looking at him, and he just came back from World's Strongest Man. And I'm sort of similar mindset, thinking, what am I doing here? But just go out and give it your all and try and enjoy the experience. And the first event was tire flip. So again, with all my days playing rugby, that was actually something that came quite natural to me. And I remember going out and winning the heat. And I beat Gav and I beat a few other guys who are, good level strongmen. And it was like, wow, what is going on? Straight over for a TV interview. And I'm like, I love this. I absolutely love this. The crowd was going mad. But really, the interaction with the crowd is the bit I love the most. When you've got young kids come up to you after and they treat you like superheroes. And I'm like, inside, I'm thinking, I'm just a normal guy for Ireland, But I'm going back to my work on Monday. But it's amazing. I absolutely love that aspect of it, and seeing what you can do to cheer up the wee guys, or people, anybody come to see you, but people with disabilities and who've probably had a harder life than most of us, and seeing how much you can change their day is a massive driver for me.
That's what I really love about the UK's especially, is because everyone is so sort of down to earth. And I remember out when I with my daughter Bella, we came down when you were, I think it was the morning of the comp, and they were doing all the measuring up for the squats outside.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
we were staying nearby, so we just wandered down, and you were all just there, and it was just, you could just have a chat and get a photo and say hello and have it, and it's just so kind of relaxed. And it's not like anyone's got like big egos or they think they're superstars, and that's in general across all strongman. Even when I go to the Giants live shows, and you've got people who are competing at a very high level at World's Strongest Man and things, but there doesn't seem to be any real big egos involved. Everyone seems very approachable. Everyone, I mean, it seems like it. I don't know if it is, maybe you can say, but it seems that all the kind of guys at the strongman shows, and certainly at the Magnus Classic recently, are really open, are really kind of happy to chat within each other as well. It's not like, well, I'm competing against you, so I'm not going to talk to you and I'm going to kind of hide some secrets or whatever. It kind of seems that everyone's very open and really actually actively cheering each other on and wanting each other to do the best that they can. Is that kind of how it kind of still feels to you?
Yeah, I would say 95% of strongmen at top level are approachable, accessible, and happy to chat to you. A very small minority are kind of a bit egotistical, and don't can't be bothered speaking to people. But I would say as well, I think most strongmen are pretty open about what they do and what it takes to get there, because they know what it takes, and they know the hard work and the diet and the sleep, and basically how you've got to go all in to reach that level. And I would say there's a select few can do that, and what I'm trying to say is that the family's got to sort of buy into it as well, and my mum and dad's watching the kids when I'm away, and Kirsty's, she understands that I'm away training late at night and coming in at midnight and eating a meal, and so there's a lot of sacrifices there for everyone. It's a real team, although I'm the one competing, or these guys are the ones competing. There's a real team behind you that gets you there. Like in the gym as well, I've got maybe up to 10 people there that I know 9 times out of 10 are going to be there when I train, and a lot of them know what gets me going. Or if I'm slacking a wee bit, they'll sort of look at me and be like, "Come on, like you're the one that's meant to be in charge here. What's going on?" Or they'll shout stuff at me or write stuff on the whiteboard, and all that sort of, these external drivers get me going, and help continue to push me to that level. But I'm kind of going off tangent there, but yeah, it's a full kind of team that gets you there. So I think I'm more than happy to speak to anyone at any point, unless the whistle's about to go, to have a chat and sort of pass on any experiences I can.
Mm. No, that's great. And then I suppose we'll touch on as well the Donald Dinny Day, because that's something else entirely. Well, it's not entirely. I mean, it's still obviously connected to strongman, but that's kind of like both Pete and I were up there earlier this year in August, and we're both going to be up there next year, aren't we, Pete? On
Yep,
the
10th anniversary, isn't it? So
Yeah,
that
10th anniversary on the 2nd of
Yeah,
August.
amazing.
And when have you done the Dinny Day? Because I know, because did you win one of the Donald Dinny Days?
Yeah, I've done quite a few. Not sure. I think maybe four. I think I've done.
Mm.
I was at the very first one actually. I
Mm.
got a call up late. I'd sort of, I can't remember how it came about, but I remember sort of paying attention to it all because it was around the time where I was really interested in the natural stones in Scotland, and the Dinnies were on. I basically created a spreadsheet as I do for everything, and I was ticking off the stones one by one, basically, as to what, I just wanted to complete them. And the Dinnies were obviously a massive one on the list. I think they were number one on the list. And I seen this sort of Donald Dinny gathering. They were having the first one, and all these lift. I didn't know a lot of the lifters, but I seen a few strongmen like John Pollock and Andy Kearney were going, and a Highland gamer called Neil Elliott. They all sort of trained together at the time. Scottish guys who I knew. And I remember just sort of messaging, I think it was Stevie Shanks, saying, if there's a space comes available, I would love to come and be a part of it. And I think I got a message like 3 days before it saying, John Pollock's pulled out. Do you want in? I was like, yeah, okay. uh, I'd never even touched a ring before. I didn't know what a hook grip was, but I was sort of the mindset. I've always had the mindset like when you get an opportunity, just go for it and figure out when you get there. And that's basically what I'd done. And I sort of just paid attention to what all the other guys were doing. And Andy Kearney was there, and I don't think Andy actually lifted in the end, but he was keeping an eye on the people warming up. I remember him coming over to me and saying, like, I love Andy, I get on great with him. But at the time, he said, you'll know lifties if you don't hook grip. And I was like, I don't know what hook grip is, so I'll just need to do what I'm doing. And he showed me, I tried it, I was like, no chance of my hook gripping because it was so painful. And I was like, oh man, so I started, a wee bit of doubt was in there, but then a wee bit of that kind of like, I'll prove you wrong attitude as well. And I did get a lift, but it was like a split second I had them up for, but it was enough to get down command. And um, it actually made me realise how special the Dinnies actually were that day. It was the day that Mark Haydock and Brian Irwin done the first ever carries across the bridge since Donald Dinny, where they done the straddle lifts and they straddled it all the way across. And Mark Haydock actually dropped one on his Achilles and ruptured his Achilles. And I remember him still like trying to finish it. I was like, wow, this means a lot to this guy. Um, so yeah, it really opened my eyes up to just how special that place is, just how special the Dinny Games has become. But I didn't foresee it becoming what it has become. But yeah, I just kept going along each year, kept asking if I could go. And then I started to compete in the strongman competition that they run there. And in 2023 was lucky enough to win it. So um, that was just a special weekend for me. Not only winning the Donald in the games, but it was the year Martin's Lissus was there, and I got the opportunity to go on a stone tour with him on a Friday. So I think I'd done a stone tour on a Friday with Martin's Lissus. I was at an all-day wedding on a Saturday, very drunk, and then the Sunday I won the Dinny games.
Brilliant.
So
Was that when the Stone? Was that when the Stones documentary was filmed in as well? Because he's in that, isn't he?
um,
Because you were in that, aren't you? What's it called?
right. Yeah.
Maximum Iron. Yeah,
Maximum. I was like
Yeah.
Iron Mind. Maximum. Yeah, Maximum Iron. Yeah.
Yeah, Maximum Iron. Yeah, that was my first real time meeting James from Maximum Iron, and he's he's got a certain eye for capturing the footage. He's fantastic. It was an amazing day, like once in a lifetime. But since then, became quite good friends with James, and he's been sort of filming me for a documentary as well, which will come out sometime soon.
Yeah, you're
But
episode
yeah,
one, aren't you? He's doing a feature on each on
yeah,
stone lifters
yeah,
and stuff. And you're number one. Yeah, yeah.
yeah. So it's just amazing to be a part of it, and But yeah, the Donald in the games, like I was gutted this year, or sorry, for next year, because I see that the first round of UK Strongest Man is the same weekend, and I was really, really want to be a part of the Donald in the games this year, the 10th year anniversary. But
Oh yeah, because that's down in Milton Keynes, isn't it? So
yeah,
I think that
yeah,
weekend, so the weekend, yeah, because so the weekend before, which is I think it's the 1st and the 2nd of August, is the semi-finals or whatever for the UK Strongest Man in Milton Keynes, and then
that's
that's when the Dinny Day is, and then the following weekend is the finals in Glasgow. But I suppose you've got to do the semi-final the week before, haven't you? That's a shame, yeah.
yeah, yeah. So I almost felt like messaging Glenn and saying, "Look, I was on the podium last year. Like, can I not just get a direct invite to
I was going to
Glasgow?"
say, can't you must be able to say, look, there's this 10th anniversary because I know that Stevie, because we've had Stevie on the podcast twice,
Yeah,
and I messaged him, like I say, he's just had his like heart surgery, hasn't he?
Yeah,
Um,
he had it like last week. Yeah,
he's in the hospital still, isn't he? I think
I think so.
because I posted yesterday that we were going to have you on, Chris, and that we were going to have Levi on and Paddy, and then he said, "Oh, this would be great for me to listen to all this stuff while I'm recovering," and then I sort of said, "Oh." Well, I'm going to be up there sort of next year and stuff, and but I said that when he's out and when he's back training again, we'll have to get him on the podcast just to have another chat with him about the operation and recovery from that. But yeah, you must be. I'm sure, Glenn, if you said, "Come on, look, I've been doing ultimates for years, and you've made the final for the last however many
4 years, I think.
years."
Yeah, 4 years, I think.
Yeah, you say, "Come on, I've got to get a buy," and then you can come and do the dinnies as well, which would be.
We'll get a petition together of Health Oddity listeners.
Let's do it.
All
No,
Yeah.
but I
five of
think
them will be like, "Yes, we want him to be."
I think when you look at the just the standard of the guys, it's at UK Strongest Man, and now Andrew Flynn, he almost he made it out his group by the skin of his teeth, to
Mm,
get into the final last year, and then he won the final. So, and the guy that blitzed the groups, Big Jamie Welsh boy, I can't remember his surname, but Jamie, he then struggled in the final. So
mm.
it's there's a lot of experience. Experience gets you a long way in Ultimate Strongman.
Mm.
Um, but it's not to say that the finalists every year will get out the pools.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah, I know that. And it's hard as well, isn't it? Doing a 2 day. Because do you do the 2 day comp the week before? You have to do both days on the Saturday and the Sunday, or just do one of those two? Oh no, it's two semi-finals, isn't it? One on the Saturday, one on the Sunday, and then you do the kind of you do the
Yeah,
Saturday in the finals weekend, and then you have to qualify for the Sunday, and then it's
yeah.
because it's really hard, isn't it? Because you've got those two weekends, one after the other, and if you qualify, you just kind of reset back to zero again, and then you have to qualify for the next day. So it's a really hard couple of weekends, isn't it?
That's exactly it. Yeah, you can't ease up at all. You've just
Mm,
got to go flat out every single event for 3 days over 2 weekends. It used to be like the first UKs I'd done it was 3 days in a row. And I remember I got put out on day two in the eliminator. I think Lewis Jack put me out. So I went and got very drunk, and as you do. And then the next day, I remember Glenn phoning saying, "Where are you? I need you here to test the equipment." And I was like, "Oh my God, I am a broken man." He's like, "No, get down here. It's like 9 o'clock. I need you to lift that 150 kilo sandbag to your shoulder as many times as you can to prove it can be done." I'm like, "Oh man, like, I think I got one right." Um, but I love it. It's you're there to do a job, but you're there to also be a part of the team, and it's great. But it's a very I still say it's probably one of the hardest competitions I've ever done. Is UK Strongest
Mm,
Man. The
I,
only thing
I
it gets,
when I've
sorry,
been there, I look at it and I'm like you look at World's Strongest Man and all that, and it's like it. I don't know. This is going to sound ridiculous, but it looks easier. As whereas UK's looked, I mean, some of the events just in the weights just looked like ridiculous, not ridiculous, but just hard. You know,
and because it's
you
like,
guys were putting everything into it. You could really see it. Yeah,
yeah. Some
and
of the
because
events are quite strange as well. Glenn likes a lot of the old school events that you
yeah.
don't see that much. But the biggest sort of change I've noticed recently in Ultimate Strongman is since we went to like a live TV show, your warming up is all done in the morning, and then you compete all day, and you're stuck in the little holding area for the duration of the show. So if the last event is barrel loading and it's at 4 o'clock, the last time you touched the barrel was at 11:30. So you've got to kind of figure out what's most important to you. But what I've sort of figured out over the years is that you kind of reverse your training a little bit. And what I mean by that is rather than getting doing a sort of gradual build up every time you do an event, I'll try and do a really good warm up before I start my events training. And then I'll just try and go in at my working weight on most of the things. Unless I think it's really dangerous, then I'll do like maybe one pickup of a sandbag or something. But for example, we were meant to be doing a car hold and it was approximately 300 kilos in the hands. So I would do a warm up before my event session. I'd do my overhead, whatever it was I was training. I'd do my sandbags and then I'd have the frame set up about 280 kilo or whatever my training weight was. And I'd just go straight in and lift it and train with that. And just to kind of get you used to that kind of shock that's going to happen. I did also try training like for comps that were 2 and 3 days in a row. I would do my event sessions 2 and 3 days in a row to try and get used to it. Um, I'm still on the fence about that one because the recovery was very, very tough, but it did get rid of any fear in my mind about not being ready, not being conditioned.
Mm. No, it's yeah. I think because I know even like Paddy Haynes said that he kind of um, even though he does more of the Giants live stuff now, he said that the ultimate shows are really hard. They're because now that they're live on TV as well, they're from like 1:30 to 4:30. So you've got all the events within 3 hours, and like you say, it's live TV, so it's literally it's non-stop, isn't it? Pretty much, and all the events are set up already, so there's no need to sort of stop in between and then reset all the events. Everything in the arena is usually kind of set and ready to go, isn't it, for all the
Yeah.
events? And you literally just go from one to the other with like, and there's literally like the equivalent of like the 3 minute TV break on Channel 5. And then they get the maybe the pundits doing a little bit of an intro, and you're just straight back into it. So it's yeah, it's tough, very very tough. Yeah.
It's so you don't really touch the equipment. You touch it in the morning and then that's it. So I remember this year the incline log was set up and it's a bit different because it's standing, so it's very hard to train it very specifically. So Glenn had the log empty was 140 kilos, and he was like, "Yeah, you can have a wee shot if you want." And I'm stood there in my Crocs, and I'm thinking, no kit, all my kit was the back. I was like, "Right, okay, I'll just." So I went down a warm up on the barbell through the back and just came through and then straight into a 140 kilo log for a clean, and it's quite intimidating, but if you do that then in the warm up in a pair of sliders, that once you get all your kit on and the crowds, the stadium's full, that it's going to be fine. But yeah, it can be quite interesting sometimes.
Excellent. And I know I'm just conscious of the school run. The school run is approaching for both of us.
Yes.
But I wanted to touch on like and the way people who don't know you would have been listening to all this. How involved you have to be with your training, with your nutrition, with managing your life, with going, here, there, and everywhere for comps. Many people would assume that this was your full-time gig, and you are a full-time. And a lot of strong men now, they're kind of they're full-time strong men, but then they may run a gym, work in a gym, be a coach as well. But you're also a full-time structural engineer, aren't you? So you've got like a proper job as well that requires you to be working at a high level with that. So I mean, as you have become more, as you've risen up the ranks and you're competing now internationally, how is that managing a full time job for you? I mean, are the people you work with and for understanding? We've had Lucy Underdown on the podcast, who's a full-time Metropolitan Police officer, in London, and she talks about it. But do you have a lot of support through work? Are they pretty good that they know what this is and how important it is? I mean, how does this work with juggling your full-time career, as it were?
Yeah, it's very tough. I think my engineering jobs just went through quite a bit of a drastic change. So my two bosses I had beforehand, one passed away and then the other one retired. and they were my bosses pretty much since I left school, apart from a couple of years away here and there. They actually, lined me up to take over the company, but I just couldn't commit to it because I was honest with them. I was like, I'm so heavily involved in strongman that that's my focus. Like I'll turn up, I'll give you everything I've got, 9 to 5, 4 days a week, but that's my commitment. That's where my commitment ends at the moment. And they accepted my honesty, and they got another guy to come in and take over the company, and I just stayed in my position as a kind of senior engineer. But again, when we had kids, they accepted me to drop to 4 days. That was my idea of how I could fit in a bit of coaching and training and spending a day with Cash, who was my youngest at the time, but now I've got two boys. But my new employer, so Johnny's sort of the boss, and then I'm kind of second in command, and he's very understanding. He's very laid back. I think COVID helped. People working from home and that kind of sort of relaxed kind of boundaries helped me. So I can turn up basically when I want, as long as I do my 8 hours and leave when I want. And I basically just run my side of the office, and nobody really bothers me. So it's quite good for that point of view. And yeah, it allows me to kind of try and keep a balance and everything else. But in terms of coaching everybody, I just fit it in when I can. I've got 35 athletes, and the nights I don't train, I am working from the minute I get the kids to bed to midnight or even later sometimes. That's me at the laptop answering messages, reviewing videos, or doing programs, and that is every single day. And then on Monday, I'm not doing podcasts. And on Monday, I am sat at the laptop pretty much all day and all night, just making sure these programs are ready for the weeks ahead. But again, my clients are really understanding. They know, like, right from the word go, I sort of say to them, like, I'll try and get back to you within 24 hours. That's the kind of timescales we're dealing with. I'm not going to be answering your message straight away. And if it slips, I'll apologise and I'll get back to you. But that's basically where we're at in a program on a week by week basis. But there'll be an overall sort of periodized block in place, and everybody's pretty understanding. So I'm lucky with that regard. But I do, like, I'll give everybody everything I've got as well. So yeah, it sort of works. There's been a lot of discussions between Kirsty and I about making sure I'm keeping things in balance when I've let things slip in the past, because we all kind of get zoned in on something. Like for me, when I'm peaking towards a strongman comp, a bit of a nightmare, because like when things start to slip in the house, like DIY or light bulbs, and it's everything's prioritised, and that's at the bottom when I'm in the run up to a strongman comp, rightly or wrongly. But then when I'm not competing, I'll get on top of things and get all my chores at home done as well.
So, and you also, I mean, you also, so first of all, so most of these 35 people that you coach, are they strongman related coaching, strength training related coaching? Is that kind of who you tend to work with? Yeah.
Yeah, very much got my own niche and own genre. So I would say 30 people that I coach are all strong men, strong women. There's maybe 3 or 4 powerlifters, and then a couple of kind of people just for general strength training who I'm trying to get into competing.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And then you also coach kids rugby, don't you?
Yeah.
When on earth do you fit that in? When
Got
does
the
that...
kids out there at midnight. Come on, let's go.
Yeah. When do
No,
you go? Because I presume you have like maybe a training session and a match or something like that. Is that how it would work?
Well, I'm just coaching at primary 4 level just now, so it's my eldest boy Cash, his age group, so it's 8 to 9 year olds. So very kind of easy. Well, it's hard to coach some rugby, but it's an easy age group to deal with. So yeah, Sunday mornings, sort of 9:30 to 11 at my old club. I just my intention was never to. I had coached rugby when I was younger. When I was playing like first team rugby, I would coach the under 15s, under 16s and stuff, just because I loved rugby and I wanted to give back to the club. And that was when I was like 18, 19, I would do that. But with the kids, or as I became a strongman, my intention was never to kind of coach rugby players or to coach rugby. I'd worked with small groups of athletes when I was first a PT, and it was like rugby players, football players, MMA fighters, and I would do their strength and conditioning with them. And I loved the banter. Like that's the thing I miss most of it. Rugby is the banter, and just hearing the stories of what people have been up to. Because in my limited time I've got with clients and strongman, I'm focused on what I'm doing, and we're not there to chat. And quite often I'll have a go at guys in the gym or women if they're chatting or on their phones about get that away, shut up, let's go, we're training now. This is training time. This is our time to get better. Other people stand and talk in their gyms, and that's how we're going to beat them because we need to train now. Um, and I wanted the kids to I love rugby. I want the kids to get from rugby what I got from rugby, and it was a sense of kind of worth, the building their confidence, skills, the team building, the friendships, the banter, the trips away, and I wanted them to get all of that, and just feeling like they're able to handle themselves, and have confidence in themselves. So I would take cash down, and for the first year, I'd watch primary one level, and I really struggled to just bite my tongue and stand and watch and, go and have fun and then just be the guy standing at the side. So after the first year, even in the first year, I would go up to the coach and the coach was fantastic. It's not a kind of, I'm not slagging off the coach anyway, Vicky, but she's still there. She's brilliant. But I was like, maybe I could have an input. Like I can help here. Like you're great at making it fun, but I can kind of teach the skills and teach the hard work part. And even from me not being a coach, I was starting to get involved a little bit. Um, and the next year I says, look, I'll move up with cash and I'll have you got a primary two coach? And I'm like, no, you can be the coach. And I was like, right, okay. So I sort of made that space happen myself, but I absolutely love it. And see, so I've been coaching them for 2 years now. And the little group we've got, they're all different characters, but I love them. And it was actually funny because we were getting beaten one of the games earlier this year. We actually were unbeaten until last weekend, and I got them down a little huddle, and I was looking at them, and they're 8 years old. Everything's a joke, everything's fun, everything's interesting. The birds are flying overhead, and I got them down. I was hugging them, and I was like, "Look, guys, we're getting beat. I want you to try a bit harder. I want you to do this, this, and this. I love you guys." And they sort of looked at me and they started laughing. I'm like, I'm not laughing. I love you guys, but it's no fun when we get beat. So come on, let's focus. And then they went out and won. But it's interesting. I absolutely love it, and I can feel myself starting to get, you know, start to go all in on the coaching side of things. And I'm like, right, no, rein it back a wee bit. They're just young kids. Let's go. Focus on what you're doing. But yeah,
Oh, that's fantastic. And then also, I mean, we are going to wrap up in a second, but also on top of all of this, you've got your own gym as well, haven't you?
yeah, yeah. So yeah. Dodge City Strength. So it's a small kind of private facility. Um, it kind of happened by accident. I when we had the kids, I was trying to manage my time more effectively, and I thought it'd be a good idea if I just put a gym in my garage. So basically took out a small loan, filled that, and filled my garage, and then sort of started paying it off over the next couple of years. Um, and then my best mate, would come and train with me. So we trained in there for a couple of years, like 4 days a week. And we were sitting having a barbecue one day, and he's like, right, how do we get to the next level? And both of us were chatting about it. And he doesn't compete. He's one of the guys that just has helped me become the athlete I am today. Shout out to Will if he's listening. But we had a chat, and he's like, what about setting up like a club, like a powerlifting club? I'm like, mate, I'm not setting up a club in my garage. And he's like, no, well, what about getting a facility? Or because we were training in my driveway then, and it wasn't ideal training strongman out there. So we sort of made the decision about trying to open up a powerlifting club in a commercial in another private gym. So that is how we started. That was 2019, and then COVID hit, and all of a sudden I had a powerlifting club with nowhere to train. Um, so it kind of disbanded for a couple of months, but we all kept in touch in the group chat. And I felt really bad because I had a powerlifting club that I was coaching that had nowhere to train, and I was training in my garage. So I applied for a unit, and it took a period, a good few months, By this point, we were allowed back into the sort of private facility, but I was having issues with the owners because they were really more like a bodybuilding orientated type of place. They didn't want chalk anywhere, and I was saying, well, I kind of need chalk, and can I bring my log in? They're like, I'm not sure about this, and so it was quite. I had to respect, what they were saying because it was their gym and they were allowing us to be in it, but they were getting quite a good deal out of me as well, for having the club in there. So eventually we basically got banned, and I again had a powerlifting club that had nowhere to train. So, but just at that moment, like within a couple of weeks of it happening, I got offered a unit in Alloa that was affordable. It was very small, probably the size of your living room, but it gave us somewhere to train, and so yeah, we done that. We moved in the week before Scotland's Strongest Man one year, 2021, I think it was. And yeah, we have just grown and grown and grown. But I'm at the stage now, it's like I'm needing a bigger facility again. We're in our second facility, but it's been perfect because it's gave me a place to train, to get all the kit I need, to build that environment that I want. It's quite hardcore, but we all support each other no matter who you are. But again, the only people that really train there are like competitive athletes or people who train at kind of strange times and they get the gym to themselves. Um, and it's probably been the best thing I've done, but it's got its own limitations as well because of my time constraints. I want to put on more competitions. I want to do X, Y, and Z. I've got a facility that I want to coach more at, but I just do not have the time. It's quite frustrating in that regard.
Wow. No, I mean it's incredible the amount that you fit in and the amount that you do. And like I say, you must be incredibly organized to spin all those plates and to keep it, to be able to compartmentalize your time that right, okay, this time I'm working on my online coaching clients and I'm writing programs. Now I'm coaching the kids in rugby. Now I'm training myself. Now I'm doing the engineering work. And also, like you say, now I'm being a dad and being a partner to Kirsty, and it's yeah, it's
Kind of had to kind of learn as I go. I would say I'm probably more reactive than organised, but it's easy to kind of get focused on what you're doing and neglect things that should take priority. I've had to really focus on being a dad. That, I found that bit was the bit that was slipping with everything that was going on, and I'm thinking, man, what is going on here? I need to be spending time with the kids and try to have fun with them. So I do make a conscious effort to try and my phone goes away when I'm with the kids and just, try and focus on what we're doing and try and have fun with the kids wherever we can. So like today, I pick them up for school in a wee while, have our tea, we go straight to swimming lessons and back, and then I'll put them to bed. So my partner, Kirsty, she's a singer and she goes to like rehearsals like twice a week. So that's my kind of nights with the boys and read their bed stories, and that's the nights that I then do my coaching work afterwards. And we're kind of just fixed, and that's our schedule. Excuse me. So, um, yeah, we just make it work. But I'll tell you this. I do very little DIY in the gym, and I've got to thank my dad for that because he's retired and he likes keeping handy, and I think he likes getting out of the house away from my mum sometimes. So, without my dad, the gym would be in a very poor state. I lift and I train, and I don't do much else in there.
excellent. No, I've got the same. I've got my Steph's dad, my father-in-law Phil, is a retired engineer, and he's very, very handy indeed. So anything that he's doing at the gym, if it's assembling equipment, if it's putting up shelves or pictures, if it whatever, he comes and does all of that. So it's
Good
absolutely
man.
brilliant, brilliant. Thank you so much, Chris. I mean, we are gonna break now for the school run. If people want to follow you, I mean, on Instagram, you are on there as at the underscore beef on Instagram. Where are you most active? Is that the best place for people to go, or do you like people to go to Facebook or YouTube, or where is good for people to follow us? But certainly, if they want to just kind of know what you're about, but also maybe if they want to get in touch for coaching and find out more about you that way, what's the best way for people to get in touch?
Yeah, probably the Instagram is my favourite one. I'm probably most contactable on that one. I don't mind Facebook. I'm on it from time to time. But certainly, if you want to see more of my training and coaching stuff, I've got my personal one, which is the beef. I've got Team Beef coaching, and then there's Dodge City Strength as my gym as well. So I do prefer Instagram. I find it a bit easier. And I've got an Instagram, but I never really use it now. I think there's some old stone lifting videos on it, but yeah,
Mm.
probably best no look
So
at that
that's
one.
Dodge, just quickly, Dodge City Strength, yeah?
Yeah, that's my gym. Yeah,
Cool. I'll have a look at that because I don't think I follow that one, but that's great. And when I'm up in Scotland, I'll have to try and, if possible. Where are you? Are you quite close to Glasgow where you are, or
we are about 45 minutes from Glasgow. Yeah,
yeah?
we're so you've got Edinburgh and Glasgow, and in the middle you've got Stirling. So we are sort of just below Stirling,
Hmm.
um, quite accessible from all three.
Excellent. No, I'll have to try and see if in
Great
the
to have
summer
you.
I can get a workout in at your place at some stage, even though it's going to be a very, very busy time of year for you, but with all your comps. But yeah, we'll see because I'm going to be driving all around in my truck all around Scotland. So no, that'll be amazing. Brilliant. So yeah, please do give Chris a follow. On probably the easy one is at _beef on Instagram. Follow the gym at Dodge City Strength. And you will probably, hopefully, you'll see. It's a long way off actually because it's not till next August. But you'll
Yeah.
see Chris live on Channel 5 and all the rest of it on there. Thank you so much. That was really really good. And yeah, I really admire how you juggle so much. Especially, and I loved hearing about the kids rugby coaching and the passion you've got for that because that really shone through. You know how much you enjoy that as well, which is great.
Appreciate it, guys. Thanks so much. I think just trying to install that good work ethic in them and the kind of hardcore sort of environment I was brought up in.
Mm.
It's kind of missing a wee bit these days, and I'm not too hard on them, but yeah,
Yeah.
hopefully they'll get something out of it for when they're older.
Well,
But
like you
nah,
say, they can have fun, they enjoy it, but they know that when it's time to work or when it's time to knuckle down a bit, they can do that as well, which is great. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. But no,
Brilliant.
it's been an absolute pleasure being on. Thanks, guys, and lovely chatting to you again, James. And nice to meet you, Peter.
Yeah, excellent. Well, thank you everybody for watching or listening. Please do like, share, subscribe, leave a review if you're watching or listening on a platform that allows you to do so. Especially Apple Podcasts is where we're trying to get our reviews. If you're on Spotify, you can give us a 5-star review on there. And if you don't follow us on YouTube, give us a subscribe on there. We will be back next week, which will be our first episode of 2026 with Levi Strong. And then, like I say, we've got Paddy Haynes on the following week. And we've also got a couple of guests lined up for January already, one of whom is part of or was part of the Team USA bobsleigh team for 10 years and is now doing some really interesting work around kind of concussions and things, isn't he, Pete? From what I saw, being thrown
Yeah,
around in a yeah.
yeah. I don't know that much about him at the minute. We've got an email with a load of stuff on which I'll be going through before we do the podcast.
No, but I've been following because I think getting thrown around in a bobsleigh for 10 years
Yeah,
said,
yeah. It was like concussion type stuff, and it's like cryotherapy stuff. Like
yeah.
he got in touch just after we had your mate on, whose name I've forgotten from the place in Chelmsford.
Yes, Theo Newton.
Theo.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So he
yeah,
was talking about it, and we got the email after that, and I was like, "Oh, this sounds interesting."
yeah.
So yeah,
It's
so
all
he'll be
about
on in January sometime.
concussions in like NFL and athletes and stuff, and then the
Yeah.
long-term effects of that and how they can. So that'll be interesting. Yes, we've got loads of guests coming up. Anyway, uh, enjoy the rest of your Christmas and New Year, Chris.
I will do. Thank you. It's my birthday in a few days, so I'll enjoy that as well.
Excellent. Enjoy the rest of your Christmas, Pete.
I will. Thanks. I'm in
Brilliant.
Guernsey at the minute, allegedly.
Okay.
Hopefully, anyway. It depends on the weather, doesn't it?
And we will see you all next week with Levi Strong for episode 279. Until then, we'll see you. Happy Christmas. Bye bye.